What screams "I've never been poor" to you? When I was growing up, every penny mattered. My mom clipped coupons until her hands cramped, and the family treated the dollar store like a luxury stop. We only bought name brand cereal if it had a coupon stacked with a sale. Now in my 30s, I work in a mid-sized office and had adjusted to a more comfortable life, but certain things still stood out to me. One day during lunch, a coworker named Brian complained that the bread they used for the catered sandwiches was too chewy, and that cheap bread ruins everything. I looked at him and realized Brian had just thrown away half his sandwich. Not because it tasted bad, but because it wasn't exactly what he wanted. I sat there remembering how my mom used to make sandwiches from the heels of bread loaves, because throwing away food was basically a sin in our house. Later that week, I overheard Brian say, "Oh, if I run out of something, I just toss it and buy a new one. Saves time." He was talking about unopened food in his fridge. My brain couldn't even process that. Growing up, we ate food until it was actually bad, not just because we got bored of it. The breaking point for me was when the office printer jammed, and Brian got frustrated and said, "Ugh, let's just buy a new one. It's not worth fixing." I remembered when my mom had hand-sewn school uniforms instead of replacing them, patched socks 3 times over, and even reused aluminum foil. We fixed everything until it literally couldn't be fixed anymore. But the real kicker came during a team dinner at this trendy steakhouse. Brian ordered a $70 steak. When it came out, he took one bite, made a face, and called the waiter over. "This is a bit too medium," he said. "I can't eat this." The waiter offered to have it recooked, but Brian waved him off. "No, just bring me the salmon instead." I watched this $70 piece of meat just sit there on his plate while he waited for his new meal. My stomach actually hurt watching the waste. When I was a kid, we would have been grateful for a McDonald's burger, let alone a steak dinner. I quietly asked the waiter to box up Brian's untouched steak. When we got outside, I handed it to a homeless man nearby who was asking for spare change. The guy's face lit up like Christmas morning. Brian saw what I did and laughed. "Why'd you do that?" The guy probably wanted cash instead. He said it like I was the weird one for giving away perfectly good food instead of letting it rot in a restaurant dumpster. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. It wasn't just that Brian had never been poor, it was that he couldn't even imagine what being poor felt like. He threw away food like it meant nothing because to him, it didn't. He talked about replacing things instead of fixing them like money was infinite. He sent back expensive meals over tiny preferences because he'd never had to be grateful for whatever was put in front of him. The next Monday at work, I watched Brian dump out half a cup of coffee because it had gotten lukewarm. Just poured it right down the sink and made a fresh cup. Meanwhile, I was drinking my coffee cold because heating it up in the microwave seemed wasteful when it was still perfectly good coffee. That's when I realized the real difference between people who've been poor and people who haven't. Brian wasn't a bad guy. He was just living in a completely different world than the one I grew up in.